All right. Well, I'm sure others will join us as we go, and we'll look forward to them introducing themselves as we go as well. So before I start anything, I always like to remind you that the chat's there. Please do use it. Post your comments, your questions as we go, and we'll invite you in. We'll ask you to at least unmute, but we always like to see your face. We'll invite you in to talk about your comment and your question and to share with us your own experiences. We again encourage you to write your name, your affiliation, and your country in the chat. We love to get to know you. We're trying to keep this very casual, and we're just pleased that today we're joined by Tran Nguyen. I'm sorry, Tran, if I always have trouble with that family name and the pronunciation, but we're just so happy that you're here and happy to be working together. The Global Business School Network, I hope those of you joining us, is a group of now about 135 schools in more than 50 countries, dedicated to improving access and building capacity in management education in and for the developing world. And our efforts to increase this capacity, to improve access, you'll find resonate well with Tran and their mission. We're very well aligned with the Center for Finance, Technology, and Entrepreneurship. But I think I want everyone to know that for us at GBSN, what we've discovered is that in order to achieve our mission, especially as it relates to local relevance, we need to work hard to think about the kinds of things we teach, the way we teach it, and the connections that we build in order to develop it. So this is a very important discussion for us, and we look forward to your comments, suggestions, your interests in learning more about them as we move forward. But I want to start by asking Tran to tell us, Tran, about your journey, about your experience, and how it led. It was 5 years ago. We're confident about that because we were just last week at the week before at your anniversary, your 5-year anniversary. But what kinds of experiences did you have that led you and Hui, your co-founder, to start the Center for Finance, Technology, and Entrepreneurship?
Yes, no, thanks a lot. First, Dan, it's a real pleasure to be with all of you. And thanks a lot, Dan, for the invitation. And first, I must say I'm really pleased to see so many of you coming from so many different diversity background countries. It's really nice to be talking. And of course, as Dan was mentioning, it would be nice, to have a conversation as well. So I'll start, but what I would love is for all of you, to feel free to ask questions and having a conversation if we were, in a room together and having that. So to tell you a little bit about Cfte and perhaps, about a little bit about me, but much more about Cfte. But I'm the co-founder of Cfte. So as Dan was saying, we're the Center for Finance, Technology, and Entrepreneurship. And it's a startup in fintech education. And Cfte is a global platform for education in fintech and the future of financial services. So we were setting up 5 years ago in London at the Shard. So whoever wants to know London, so it's the iconic building, and we have trained professionals and students. The idea came with a big vision and a mission. So my background is not education. So I'm really coming from the industry. So just a little bit. So I used to be a trader in New York, trading emerging market for Standard Chartered. Then I moved to London. It was supposed to be for 1 year, and it's been 23 years in London. So I know London very well. And I helped first to set up emerging market desk for Dresner in capital markets, then moved to UBS private banking and advising and working with ultra high net worth clients out of Asia, but in London, and then advising family offices. And I quit my comfortable job and I built up Cfte. And for one big reason, because I saw this big wave of finance and technology really transforming the world of finance, but not a lot of people were aware of it. And I co-founded Cfte with Hui Nguyen Chiu. And Hui Nguyen Chiu is very much at the forefront of fintech himself. He has built and co-founded one of the largest fintech accelerator in Asia, build that in Hong Kong, then in Malaysia, bring it back to London, which London is the center of fintech. We did this, and he actually saw that big gap coming, which is today professionals like myself, not geeks, understanding very well finance, but not understanding the impact of technology on finance. He's one of the one who built the program of fintech for Oxford, Said Business School, and then also for Hong Kong, MOOC, the first MOOC in the world in fintech for Hong Kong University. And actually now, today, we're having the honor to have also the visit of Douglas Honor, who is also one of the professor leading program in fintech out of Hong Kong University, coming to visit us. But that just shows that we saw that gap of finance professionals like myself at that time, 5 years ago, couldn't find any education to upskill, reskill them into this new world of finance. Nobody knew about blockchain, APIs, machine learning, all these very complex world, and then nowhere in any places where we could find that knowledge. And that's why Cfte was born, with this idea to create that big mission. So we have created a program, and we have impacted over 100,000 professionals from 100 countries who have participated in Cfte programs to accelerate their careers in fintech and new finance. So in addition to being in London, Cfte is also present in Singapore, Abu Dhabi, Hong Kong, Luxembourg, Budapest, and France, but we have partners from everywhere around the world with the industry. So we are really close to the industry. And Cfte has this objective, is to equip professionals and students with the skills to thrive in this new world of finance. And that we found the only way to make that education and to help people around the world, not only in the UK, but for us was also the impact of people in Asia, Africa, India, everywhere around the world, to have access to this education led by the industry. So we have our core principle, which is very much for the industry, by the industry. So we have 500 startups working with us, a huge ecosystem. And I will probably stop there, but the idea of Cfte is very much work hand in hand with academia, working with the professors, working with the academics, working with the trainers, so that we can really facilitate and support the need of creating program so that students can really learn what's happening globally around the world in fintech, so that students can also have case studies and have a good learning from everywhere around the world in complement with what's happening by teaching by the university. So that's in a nutshell about Cfte, and then we can I can share with you a little bit more after.
Well, thank you for that, Tram Anh, and it's what a great way to lay a foundation for this conversation. I wrote a couple of notes as you were talking. This idea of for industry, by industry, and at times I've heard in higher education and business schools, sometimes we talk about for academics, by academics. And if I had to sort of characterize one reason which drew us together, Tram Anh, is your experience with industry and our experience with higher education and business schools and the kind of opportunities we could create by just thinking about integrating or connecting or supplementing or partnering in different ways. And I wonder if you could speak a little bit about that in your experience, which is, I think, part of the point. Where do you see academia fitting in? Because you mentioned that as you go through to achieve the mission for industry by industry, but at the same time, you're talking about how do we connect more with business schools? What does this mean to you, this opportunity to connect?
Yes, no, thanks, Dan, for asking the question. I think the industry is really, really transforming. So I'll ask a question, who is very familiar to fintech? So first, have you heard about finance, technology, fintech? Is it something that from the audience I'm asking, is this something you are familiar with? Is it already impacting your country? Are you seeing, this, yes, I see Yumna. Where are you, Yumna?
Yumna, you want to unmute yourself and tell us where you're from?
Yes, hi.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you well.
Yes, hi. I'm Dr. Yomna Abdallah from Bahrain, from University of Bahrain, and we have a master program in fintech, which started 2 years ago.
Really, really good.
So
yes.
That's why we are looking. Yeah, we are looking for collaboration to see how basically this session will and your center, because it's the first time to hear about the center, to see how we can start a bit of collaboration and make the best use of what you said, the industry, because what we need in the program is basically to add the industry factor, an element to it, basically.
Yes. So you see the point. You see the point is that today, what we saw is that first, from an industry perspective, as we are really, really close to the industry, what we are seeing is that there's huge transformation happening in the industry of fintech and finance in general, because for us, fintech is finance technology, is the impact on how do you define fintech. A lot of people say, what is fintech? What is fintech? Fintech is the impact of technology on finance. How today, thanks to technology, thanks to your mobile phone, people have now access to savings, have access to finance. They can really transform their life with the use of technology. It has a huge impact because now there's acceleration, and especially during COVID time, what we are seeing is that this huge spike of startups and also banks innovating much more and bringing finance and technology together. And I will tell you one thing. Do you know how much investment has been put into the finance industry or fintech industry the past 10 years? Do you all know how much money have been invested into fintech? Just to tell you a little bit about, how big is it in terms of for the finance industry? Can someone put a number, just an estimate?
Anybody want to offer your answer in the chat or unmute yourself? Either way, but we'd love to hear your answers to that. I'd love to hear. I'm hesitant to toss in my number because I suspect it would be way too low. Right?
No numbers? You want to try and guess?
Is it across like just 1 year or like recently?
So it's 10 years. So the past
10 years.
So the past 10 years, how much money have been invested into fintech? So finance technology, all those startups that you are seeing. I don't know where you are based, Jack, but for example, the Revolut or, those big companies, MasterCard, PayPal. So there's been, I'll tell you,
23 billion.
Sorry?
23 billion.
Okay. So It's the past from 10 years ago until today, it's around $300 billion. It's huge. $300 billion has been invested into fintech. In the last decade, more than 200 billion has been invested by venture capital and private equity in fintech startup. Last year only, with COVID, 100 billion, 1/3. What does it mean for industry? It means that for an industry, fintech has become a major part of financial services. The fintech sector is now equivalent of 38% of the whole banking sector in terms of market capitalization. What does it mean also? It means that the fintech industry is an important employer. What does it mean? It means that if fintech was a city, it would rank 3rd as an employer in financial services, just after New York and London. The fintech industry, as of November last year, was looking to employ 300,000 people, which is huge, compared to New York, 450,000, and London, 400,000. So fintech on its own is aggressively hiring. The main fintech companies are looking to hire, as we speak, more than 50,000 professionals. But what we are seeing is that when we talk, and our job at Cfte is really much talking with the CEOs of the fintech companies, they are saying we can't find talent. There's a huge gap between what the industry is in need and what the industry is looking for talent, but there's this big knowledge gap and skills gap. People, professionals, but also students don't have the right knowledge and skills. And so that's why I think, to come back to your question, Dan, what is really, really important is to work in collaboration with the universities and the business school to very much bring that gap together so that we really can skill up the students and prepare them in conjunction already with what the university and the business school are being done, but bring that component of what the industry are in need, and then mind that gap so that the students can be really future-proof themselves and be ready to work for those companies who are looking for talent.
Thanks, Treman. The gap, as you call it, in your experience, in lifelong learning, in fact, the way I would think about your experience in starting CFTE is largely driven by this idea that we have people working in finance, right? Already in financial services industry, but don't understand and have a difficult time adapting to the technology that's impacting the industry so much. I read, I think it was on your site, Treman, about that, what is it, about 80% of the skills you need in fintech are the same as the skills you need in tech more generally. So this idea that we have a workforce already that might be equipped for fintech is probably pretty difficult to defend, right?
Yes, no, thanks. Thanks, Dan. Exactly. So what we did, and I would love to share with you, and perhaps I'll get Christelle, who is part of CFTE team, to share about the Fintech Job Report, which is a free downloadable report that we did during COVID. And we did an analysis of, by connecting with the 225 largest fintech unicorns around the world. So unicorns are companies that are worth more than $1 billion. So large fintech companies that are basically now looking for talent. So what we did is that we connected with all of them, and you can download the report through our website. It's downloadable for everyone. And what we've done is that we have done a taxonomy of the 40,000 new jobs in fintech that didn't even exist a couple of years ago. And what are those jobs? What are the skills and the competencies that anyone today who would like to be in the future of finance, not only fintech, but for us is very much the future of finance. And as Dan was saying, for us, the big, let's say, thing that people must remember is that 80% of the skills are the skills that you would find in tech companies. 80% of the skills required today is technology. You can't be in finance and not understanding technology. Finance is now lacking of those people. So we must understand this huge need. So that's why we call our report Technology is Eating Finance. It's not easy for traditional finance professionals, because I'm thinking of my colleagues in the bank, you know, and saying, oh, is my job will be eaten by technology? No, it doesn't require quite a lot for anyone today that has been into their job in finance to upskill and understand technology. And we can talk more about what does it mean in concrete. If you are in education, what does it mean? What you have to teach? How do you teach it? How do you upskill, you know, someone who has been into that journey like a professionals to get those skills? But we have our own framework of upskilling and reskilling that I would be very happy to share with you. But for any students today, I think is really, really important. It will be really difficult for anyone, be students or professionals today, who don't understand technology. So that's the book that we have launched, Technology is Eating Finance, the Fintech Job Report, but it really clearly demonstrates that anything today is driven by digital and technology.
You know, we're going to continue to explore this business side, which I think we've emphasized so far. But I want to, before we do that even further and get into our collaboration and what it might mean for schools and for impact, I want to just explore our purpose in getting involved together at GBSN was at least partially, if not mostly, driven by this idea that fintech is not just a set of skills, but a critical enabler for things like the Sustainable Development Goals. And this idea that our responsibility is not only to improve access to management education, but in many ways the management education that matters to build better communities, to build a better world. Can we just spend a few minutes talking about that connection? For me, the eye-opener was, and again, I don't know as much about fintech, but I remember when COVID first started closing down economies and thinking about the implications of that in ways that we hadn't had to think about in the past. I recall thinking, boy, I wish the US had made better progress in digital payments. I was still carrying around, even 3 years ago, enough cash so I think I could survive, and a few credit cards. But there were so many opportunities where I thought, wow, things don't really need to exchange hands at this moment, and I don't need to be in front of people. Tell me a little bit about your experience and the opportunity that fintech provides for us to accelerate the development of the SDGs.
Yes, no, thanks, Dan. Yeah, you're totally right. You're totally right to say that fintech has this huge component of financial inclusion. It has a good, it's accelerated, and it has helped quite a lot of people who really, and we've seen this, in very, very short period of time, thanks to the fintech startups a lot of the banks couldn't give access to finance because it was retail bank. They had to close, their shops. They couldn't, clients couldn't actually have access to the cash. And so in certain countries where we work very closely with some of the governments, where basically the regulators has basically put in place an acceleration so that the fintech can really closely plug themselves, and the fintech where those in payments, challenger banks, we've seen the rise of challenger banks. Challenger banks are virtual banks. So those are not the banks. I don't know if you are familiar with fintech but challenger banks in our world are those that are like a Revolut. Like you don't have to have like a physical branch, but you can basically bring people to have access to a card, and there they can start, having money, paying people, etc. And we have seen a huge acceleration of those, especially on our side, because we are in education. So we see that coming from our community, from the governments, etc., was from Asia, Africa, India, Brazil, huge spike in terms of demand for fintech, and it brings to people, opening more bank accounts online. But for us at Cfte, is huge demand for understanding. It was a huge demand for what it is, how does it work, how do I make collaboration between a fintech and a bank, how does it work, what is an APIs, I don't know if I don't want to go too technical, but all this new complex world of fintech was really, really in demand because people couldn't have access to the knowledge. So how does it work with artificial intelligence? So we've seen, and what are the new ways of making payments? That's why during COVID-19, Dan, we have seen the huge demand for knowledge in payments, in open banking, in platforms. So if you like, we can spend a bit of time with platforms, the models in finance, but this is not a lecture, so I won't do that. But it really has brought a sense of finance as an enabler to create, to enable people to have access to finance, cash, etc., to save money, to also save small SMEs, for the small medium enterprise to continue their jobs. So it has really helped that. But more importantly, and this is what we are seeing at Cfte, it has also enabled people to learn and to transform and find jobs in fintech. So for me, that's the sustainability. Today, fintech industry or blockchain industry, and I know you could say, oh, blockchain, we've seen your cryptocurrency going down, it's not good, but it has created jobs. And so today, thanks to this industry that are really, transforming our industry, it sees creating huge amount of jobs. And that is for me an enabler for sustainability and part of the the goals that we would love to support more.
This point, you raised many points just now, but for us, one of the thoughts we had coming into this was really revolving around the SMEs, right? We think that the future of globalization has a much stronger role for SMEs than the previous way we thought about globalization and the multinational companies and the global supply chains. And a lot of that, I think, is due to the enablers that are emerging or have been emerging through fintech. So this is fantastic, Tran. I was sad that I couldn't show up in London for your 5th anniversary. And luckily, we were able to have Nicole, one of our colleagues, be there. But I did make a video, right? And I remember as I went into that video thinking about the main drivers for the kind of work that you do and the kind of work that we do at GBSN, our formal mission is to improve access to quality. So quality is an important dimension, locally relevant management education for the developing world, and improving that access is key. But it's this local relevance that is really strongly embedded. If I had to put my finger on 3 things that really drive this, one is what you've talked about is it's pretty new, right? You know, 300 billion over the last 10 years, but that's still relatively new in our world. But you also emphasized how dynamic it is, right? And how constantly the industry is changing because tech is changing. But this idea of local relevance, especially given the audience that we have here, we haven't explored as much yet. And the idea that it's the same knowledge and the same skills that we need everywhere globally. Yeah, sure, there might be a good core, but there's a strong emphasis on what matters in a particular place. Regulation, for example, and the sector, fintech sector, I imagine, is pretty important and varies across countries. Can you speak to this, these differences across countries a little bit? Because the people we have here are from everywhere. I'm really excited about the breadth. Yeah, please, could you comment a little bit about on what you've learned with this, about the differences across countries when it comes to fintech, and how important it is for the schools represented here to think locally, not just globally?
Yes, no, you're totally right. I think what is really important today, as things are changing, jobs are changing, industry is changing, first we need to make sure that we keep the knowledge constantly updated on a regular basis, so that we can update, that's why we're really, really close to the industry. We spend a lot of time making sure that we are close to the industry, and whenever there's something happening, we can create a program that really, really can help the people to understand. So it's really led by the industry for the industry. Secondly, I think having this global view. And after that, I'll talk about the local view. But first, having the people to have a very strong knowledge about what's happening in the US, in Europe, in Asia, in India, in Africa. So that's why whenever we launch a program, we make sure that we have this really huge diversity of views, so that people can have a very strong understanding of what's happening in their own local country, in fintech, in regtech, in artificial intelligence, in payments, and after that having that global view. Why? Because I think what we are seeing in the industry of fintech is really, really collaborative. The industry is really collaborative. When you see a fintech startup, what they tend to do is that they tend to be very local, because they're coming from a need. If they were set up because they saw that huge gap in the country or in the sector. And what they do after that, they want to scale their services to other countries. So which means that what they would like to have is people who understand what's happening in other parts. So when we launch program, for example, I can talk to you about perhaps one of the programs that we did with EDHEC. Just as an example, EDHEC is also a member of the GBSN, but we are creating programs that enable, with the case study that you are, with the learning on the case study that we're providing, to have a very global view, and working hand in hand with the academics, with the trainers, with the professors of the school, to provide a unique perspective in the country, so that the students will have this really strong understanding of what's happening globally, but also locally. We will take care of the global view by the industry, with the startups, we're very close with the startups, with any startups in fintech, but working hand in hands with the business school and the university to bring that local knowledge, which will help the students to really apply after that to what they can apply if they were applying for a job or they're looking for a job. They can conceptualize and put it in their own country. So I don't know if it speaks well and if I made it, if people understood, but this is very much the partnership that we see with the university and the business schools.
That's exactly where we wanted to go with that question, Chairman. We started by emphasizing the connection between practice and academia,
yes,
more generally, which is extremely important in this collaboration, but it's also this global local perspective. What GBSN wants to bring in collaboration with CFTE is a really strong local leadership on the part of the business schools involved here. And as we started with your question, Tremen, the schools are at different stages and people are at different stages in our schools in terms of their fintech experience, their knowledge. And for us, we as much want, I think I saw Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, for example, here in Hong Kong, fintech is perhaps more advanced, and with HKUST, it's also very advanced. We want them to be involved in this collaboration as much as we want schools that are really just getting started. So when we talked about this, and I'd love for you to comment on this, Tremen, it's the idea of bringing business and academia together to link global and local, but it's also an opportunity for us to think differently about the kinds of things that we do. So, for example, I'll come back and ask you to talk a little bit about this. One of the courses that CFTE offers, Fintech 360, very strong practice orientation, very strong global orientation. How do we work with schools to create a very strong local connection and local relevance? But for us, we're also building an impact community. And for those of you who don't know about our initiative for impact communities, think learning communities, but with a higher aspiration. So with learning communities, there's always this emphasis of connecting people with like minds, exchange ideas. For us, it's also about connecting people to share resources. It's also about taking another step up and connecting people to facilitate collective action. So what are the kinds of things that we do together that we can't do alone to have this impact on economic and social development locally and globally? We'll come back to talk a little bit more about the impact communities and its fit in this collaboration. But Tremen, tell us a little bit about your experience, for example, using edX and what you've been doing with edX in France as a basis for what we think we could do to support schools and work with schools on Fintech 360.
Yes, no, thanks, Dan. Yes, we love the work that we did, we do with edX. So edX is also part of a GBSN member, but edX connected with us 3 years ago or 4 years ago, because that if you don't know edX, so they have their master in finance, which is one of the, very top in the world. I think they're really, really doing very well in finance. And the director came to us because they heard about our work with the industry. And he said, it will take me too much time to actually create a program myself in fintech. I have to find professors. I have to find this global view, having someone who, because we had every time that we launch a program, we have 40, 50 fintech startups or regulators, part of the program. So we tend to build a program that are really global view with a lot of the startups and a lot of people in the innovation side. And so edX said it will take us too much time. So why don't we do? So we have this very good program, which is in finance, very, very good. But what we could do is to allow our students to learn the use case. So they all they tried our program, the Fintech 360 program, to get the students, so master in finance, to learn about fintech and all the case studies that are so it's an 8-hour program online, but collaboration with professors at edX. So we are not just an online program. We work hand in hand with the professors at edX, where we can, because we are online, so the professor will have to make sure that the students really understand what is behind every case studies. But in 2 months, all the students, so every cohort is around 350 students, and we have now done 3 cohorts, 3 promotion, 3 years. So we work with the professors in finance, and we get the students to learn online. So 8 hours of studies in fintech. So it's we can go through the details, but I won't go through the details. But it's really a good program, understanding what is fintech, the business models, the players, etc., about fintech, about blockchain. You know, all these very important notions. And the students have also a chance to work on a case study with a fintech startup. And in that case, we chose to work with some of the largest fintech companies to provide a business case so that the students have a really concrete example and a case study they can share, that they've worked and understood the business models of Revolut, Onfido, all these large fintech companies that we mentioned. And at the end, they have the master in finance. So it's part of the edX program. And on top of it, with our curriculum and our test, because they have to go through a certain test, they also have a certificate from Cfte in fintech and entrepreneurial finance. So we are very proud of the work that we have done with edX, and we have trained now 1,000 students. And how do I know if it's a success? I am with, we spend a lot of time looking at the alumni, and all of them are really doing well. They're all leading in some now, in some of the very, very good either startup companies in their own country. We have people from Dubai, we have people from Asia, we have in the US. So edX is locally in France, but they have students everywhere around the world. And now some of them are doing really, really well, I must say. So that's the type of collaboration that we have done with edX as an example.
That's great, Treman. You emphasize a number of things, and if I could just generalize a little bit, here's a school that's by many accounts a leader in finance education, right? It's the largest private institution, I think, in France, and to connect with you, even for that institution, and being able to accelerate fintech education was very important. So that's one thing. But the other piece that you've emphasized is that it's not just a course, but rather edX adds value to that course in some way with the things that it does, and connects with locally, not only in France, but the cohort that they bring together in the classroom. So those are all very important dimensions of the kind of work we're trying to do together. So all of you out there, imagine trying to accelerate what you're doing with fintech education, but doing it in a way where your school and your people are creating value around a set of content and courses that already exist, and connections. I want to shift gears a little bit towards the research and things with our impact community, but I want to try and ask you about internships. and when we first started talking, one of the things you said to me was interesting, and you said something like students in finance, or even more broadly, can't find internships or have a difficult time finding internships in fintech. Could you comment on that a little bit and what you've done at CFTE about that?
Yes, no, exactly. I think it came even more during the pandemic, but we were really surprised, because our world was always being professionals. But last year, we saw that huge gap, about 80% of the students worldwide couldn't find a proper fintech internship. For us, it's really important. As you know, employers, when they look for, a good student or a good candidate, they would look at their CV. And if they have a work experience that shows that they're interested in fintech, it's better, or technology or finance. But in that case, 80% around the world couldn't find a secure a fintech internship. And that's why we did something, that really helped. And that was, on top of our work, but it was something we really care as a impact, working with some of the universities. So learning about fintech, learning about AI, learning about payments. But we did a global fintech internship targeting 1,000 students. Actually, we had 4,000 applications in less than 3 weeks, who are students from more than 80 countries who wanted to have a fintech internship. They couldn't find. And what we did is that, because we have a large network of fintech companies, we said we connected with some of them, and they all, 5 of them, in very short period of time, said, we are happy to provide with a business case study. And all the students, so we chose to help 1,000 students from 50 countries. They all learn about fintech, learn about AI, learn about payments. They worked on case studies. They developed the soft skills that we like to have, which is collaboration and teamwork. People coming from totally different background as well. It was really an eye opener for me and for us. Is that, and I would like to raise it to the community of all of you, is that we had students that were not necessarily coming from the STEM. We had people who actually came from, of course, finance, technology, but accounting, legal. We have a lot of people from biotech, medtech, a lot of students from totally different background who saw that it would be good for them to also understand technology and finance. So we did that in a very short period of time. They all loved it. It was an eye-opener even for our partners. They all got mentored by our alumni professionals in finance and technology and fintech, who spend time with the students to help them to learn more and work on the case studies. But those are the type of initiative with the program like we did with EDHEC, really bring, and we'd love to do more with business school and universities, is very much bring the knowledge up in finance, technology, and fintech, and also entrepreneurship, but also get the students to work on case studies so that they can have that work experience, or let's say a project they can share about, and have that line in their CV to say that I have worked on a case study of the like of the Revolut, or the, the Stripe, or, the PayPal, MasterCard, etc. And that will give them an edge. We think that those are the really important. If I may, I'll share, Dan, about our framework, identifying what are the skills you need to have to be working in the fintech company, and it's based on SHIME. So I would love to share what is SHIME, but it helps a lot, actually, the organization or the students, perhaps, and the professionals, but to be in finance and technology and fintech. And SHIME comes from 5 things. SHIME is developing soft skills. because of technology today, we must, I'm sure universities and business school, you are doing a lot already on soft skills, but teamwork, collaboration, really, really important. Hard skills, no doubt, what is, all these good hard skills knowledge in finance, technology, fintech, artificial intelligence, machine learning, blockchain, cryptocurrencies are really important. But then after that, three main, very important, for industry knowledge. People today, you have the chance to be seeing this huge change in the industry. And the fintech industry is changing very fast. If any students today can demonstrate that they are curious about the industry, I think they have an edge. Industry knowledge, very important. Fourth one is mindset. Thinking like an entrepreneur, adapting very, very fast. Show that, the students have that mindset of building and adaptability, curious. And the fifth one is experience. So that's why I mentioned work experience. So this is what we want to help, is that the program that together, we work together at bringing the industry with the academia, working together so that we really can create a big impact community and help students after that to develop those work experience, and that's comes to, as Dan was sharing about our desire to create that community, bringing the industry with the academia together.
Thanks for that. I'm going to remember Shaim for other occasions. I want to get to Yumna's question. I'd like to start us in addressing that question about, I'm interested more about collaboration with business schools, which is an important reason why a part of this work together with Cfte revolves around GBSN building what we call an impact community. So imagine, in fact, take into consideration the conversation so far about case studies, right? And how application becomes very important locally. And how can we, through our work at GBSN and in collaboration with Cfte, generate more relevant and current case studies that are shared globally in fintech education and beyond. I think it's important, Treman, what you emphasized, that it's not just finance students, but it's accounting students. It's students in information technology and understanding the industry, all those kinds of things, this integration. So for us, a big factor is, I always say I'm still old school. I believe research informs teaching. And for us, a large part of what we hope to accomplish with this collaboration is by connecting academia and practice to generate more opportunities for research, not only with case studies, but potentially with large data sets, with local companies, and co-creating research and doing it more quickly and integrating that research more quickly into the classroom. Treman, maybe just a 30-second comment on that, because we do have to close. I'm anxious that the time has run very short, and we've only just begun, it feels to me, like, to explore some of the possibilities. But Treman, just a quick comment on that, and then we'll get to the closure.
Yes, no, Dan, totally aligned exactly what you said, is that we would love to invite you all, to join, very much to work together, to be very close to the industry with the startups in your own country, involving them, in research, so that it can really help the students, to use the data, to do some research, so that, the students can really help them to go much, much deeper in their work in finance, technology. We do a lot of research, in collaboration with universities ourselves, with the industry very much. We are conducting, research on fintech jobs, on blockchain job, in the metaverse. We're doing a lot. And what we would love is to have, a collaboration between, the academia and to create that collaboration so that we can really create more and more together with you to create opportunities for the industry and the students. Yeah. Yeah, there are so much more we could do, but we are just at the beginning, as Dan mentioned, and we are short of time, but we could, Dan, run another webinar to discuss more about, case studies, etc. But this is very much an invitation to collaborate together for bringing more research and more industry knowledge to the world of academia in your local your local country. So if, for example, you are interested, and we'd love to launch, a specific one, if this is of your interest, with some companies that could help, students to work on something so that the students can have an experience and could lead after that to jobs opportunity for them or more. That's the type of thing we would love to support together with GBSN.
Thanks, Tram. And I encourage all of you to, there are many channels if you're interested in being a part of this collaboration and leading in this dimension, interested in the Finance 360 program as part of this collaboration, anything like that, Traman, hook up with her on LinkedIn, me too, LinkedIn, but also my email address, dleclaire@gbsn.org. And Julie, I don't know if you can post at the moment a link to our website for people to express interest. We have all of your names now. By joining us today, we know that you're interested, and we'll be in touch with you to talk about this program and the impact community that we'll build around it. So I just want to make a quick note. Abibi, your question about the business model for CFTE, there's a fair amount of information available on the website. But Traman, you could maybe just say one word about the way you're organized before we close, just 30 seconds.
Yes, no, thanks a lot. So no, it's the business model is a collaboration. We either build program, we create program, we co-design program. There's a lot of different ways we could do. We have program on our own. We could develop something together. With GBSN, we have this great partnership with Fintech 360, which I would love, to share more about the details. But Kanishka has just put and you can visit our website where we can see all our courses at Cfte. So we have fintech, AI, payments, open banking, entrepreneurship, etc. And it's very much also what do you need as a business school that we can help and support. But those are the programs that we have. And then, of course, feel free to reach out to me, to my team, with also Dan, to see whether there's something we could do together. Very, very happy to do so. I know Yoma, you had interest, so you can also reach out to me, my team, Dan, and we can discuss more. But it's very much we design and create course. We are very good at course creation. Could be something quite global and bringing it to the local industry. Yeah.
Right. Thanks, Traman, for that, and thank you for being with us. In the chat, you'll find links to CFTE and to the information form or the interest form at the GBSN website. But thank you, Traman, for being with us, and most importantly, for working together with GBSN to accelerate the development of fintech education. And thank you all for joining us. We look forward to working with you.
No, thanks a lot for having me. Thanks everyone. Looking forward.